Ahithophel, a miraculous advisor whose hidden wound led to shocking betrayal and divine redemption. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, in the heart of Jerusalem, Ahithophel, a revered counselor in the court of King David, walked among the opulent halls, adorned with gold and adorned silks. His wisdom was sought like precious gems, for he held the minds of men with the gentle strength of his words. Yet beneath the praise heaped upon him lay a heart shrouded in grief. Bathsheba, the daughter of his cherished daughter, had become a pawn in a tragic tale of lust and betrayal, her life entangled in the web of King David's desires. The king, a man after God's own heart, had succumbed to the darkness, leading Ahithophel to wrestle with the burden of sin that stained his family's honor. As the whispers of David's sins unfurled through the streets, Ahithophel felt the weight of each word pierce his heart. Every counsel he had ever given, each moment spent guiding the king, now felt shadowed by this grievous sin that echoed in the chambers of heaven. Every day, as shadows lengthened, grief gnawed at him, reflecting the turmoil in the kingdom. The Lord's displeasure sent ripples through David's reign, leading to a cascade of discord, both in his family and among the people of Israel. In the midst of this unrest, a fire ignited within David's own son, Absalom, leading him to rise in rebellion. Ahithophel, in a tumult of decision, saw an opportunity to align with Absalom, envisioning a chance for renewed power amidst the chaos. With cunning and strategy, he pledged his allegiance to the rebellious prince, his mind racing with schemes that could turn the tides of the kingdom. Yet, with each plan he presented, the bitter taste of betrayal overwhelmed him. The taste of iron mingled with ambition, and the prowling shadows of guilt clung to Ahithophel's spirit. News soon reached the ever-praying David. Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. In that moment, the king lifted his eyes to heaven and cried, "Lord, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness." 2 Samuel 15:31. Unbeknownst to Ahithophel, a spiritual battle raged beyond the realm of sight, as divine providence worked to restore the broken, to mend what was torn. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Amidst the clamor of rebellion, Absalom chose to heed the advice of a different counselor, casting aside Ahithophel's strategic plans. In that moment, despair gripped Ahithophel as the realization struck him that his wisdom, once regarded as divine, had been rejected. He felt the threads of his life tighten around him, a foreshadowing of imminent tragedy. Standing on the precipice of fate, he found himself gripped by the reality of God's sovereignty. Faced with a choice between loyalty to a king once beloved and the hollow satisfaction of rebellion, Ahithophel's heart longed for redemption, not just for himself, but for Bathsheba's encumbered soul. In the twilight of his loyalty and ambition, amidst growing chaos, Ahithophel stood alone, pondering the deep sorrow his family endured and the stripes of sin inked on the soul of the king. The chance for divine restoration lingered in the air, yet the weight of betrayal loomed heavily. What would he choose as the storm surged? The answer awaited, cloaked in divine mystery, for only God knew the depths of Ahithophel's heart and the unfolding of his plan in the kingdom of Israel. As dawn broke over Jerusalem, the city appeared draped in a shroud of tension. The heart of Ahithophel raced, for in his secret anguish he felt the tremors of looming calamity. He had pored over Absalom's plans, desperate for the kind of wisdom that had once guided him unerringly by the hand of God. Yet now he found himself adrift amid the storm of betrayal that he had willingly cast his lot into. In the palace courtyard, the air was thick with whispers of war. "If only I heeded the eternal words of wisdom," he murmured, sinking deeply into thought. "But in my folly, I have sought to wrest control from the sovereign hand of the Almighty." Ahithophel envisioned the fate of Israel hanging in the balance, caught between the rebellion of a son and the desperate prayers of a father. The lament of David echoed in his heart, a plea for divine intervention amid the clamor. Unbeknownst to Ahithophel, the Lord was working through the very rejection of his counsel. As Absalom turned to Hushai, a loyal friend to David, he initiated a plan that would seal Ahithophel's fate. Hushai spoke wisely, weaving a counter-strategy that captivated Absalom. "For I know David, the fierce warrior," he urged. "He will fight with the ferocity of a lion, and he will not spare his forces even for a moment." With that, Absalom, intoxicated by the counsel of Hushai, sealed his rebellion against his father, unaware that he was being led into the snares of divine providence. Ahithophel, realizing the turn of events, was bewildered. The path toward power, which he had so fervently embraced, now seemed to evaporate like mist before the dawn. The weight of his treachery pressed heavily upon him. Crushed by despair, he withdrew from the deceiving light of the court. He wandered into the wilderness of his thoughts, facing the mirror of his choices. "What shall become of my soul?" he cried aloud, alone beneath the ancient olive trees. "I have walked among the wise, yet I have become a fool." Yet in the depths of his sorrow, a flicker of understanding ignited within. Ahithophel fell to his knees, beseeching the Lord. "O God, though I have betrayed my king, I seek a path back to you. Restore the honor that has been marred. Restore Bathsheba. Restore my heart." His voice trembled, filled with the weight of regret. As these cries echoed to heaven, the Lord heard him. For in the shadows of rebellion, a deeper conflict raged, one that would reveal the heart of David and the profound depths of God's mercy. News of Absalom's ascent broke over the land, and the forges of war began to blaze. As Ahithophel struggled, the prophecy given to David began to unfold. "Behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house." 2 Samuel 12:11. Yet what he could not know was that through the divisions and despair, God's loving kindness was working towards reconciliation and redemption. Amidst the encroaching battles and the shifting alliances, Ahithophel stood at the crossroads of despair and hope. His heart pulsed with the rhythms of possibility. Even amidst the storm, divine redemption awaited, a tapestry woven through sovereign hands. What would be the end of this tale, and what light might break through the turmoil? For the Lord's ways are a mystery, and within the darkness lies the promise of dawn. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its brilliant light over the hills of Jerusalem, the air was filled with an unsettling stillness. The armies were gathering, and fear gripped the hearts of many, for Absalom had taken his place upon the throne, the usurper of his father's kingdom. In the depths of despair, Ahithophel found himself clinging to the remnants of his former wisdom. He could almost hear the sound of David's harp mingling with the cries of the people. "How hath the mighty fallen," he lamented, remembering the psalms that spoke of glory, trust, and the great faithfulness of the Lord. It was in these moments of loneliness that he confronted his treachery and the irreversible fracture it had wrought. Yet among the whispers of doom, a flicker of resolve ignited in Ahithophel's heart. What if this rebellion is the instrument of divine judgment, and through it God's purposes are yet to unfold? He pondered. With a heavy heart, he made his way to Absalom's encampment. His face bore the traces of regret, yet beneath the weight of betrayal stirred a hope intertwined with an echo of faith. Entering the royal tent, he found Absalom seated in triumph. "O son of David, if you would heed my counsel once more," he began, voice trembling yet earnest. "I can guide you to secure your throne against all who would rise against you, for indeed your father is a man of war, fierce in spirit and now in heat of anger." Absalom's eyes shone with the thrill of power, yet a flicker of doubt crossed his brow. "What shall we do of this David?" he asked, hungry for the consent of his adviser. Ahithophel, feeling the gravity of this moment, spoke with vehemence. "If it pleases the king, gather all Israel and pursue him this day, while he is weary and his forces scattered. Strike swiftly, and allow no mercy for the king, for he is as a lion, but you shall outmaneuver him in his weakness." The words fell from his lips like silver, laced with a dangerous allure. Absalom's heart quickened, for he longed for the validation of the crowd surrounding him. Hearing from Ahithophel, he felt his resolve strengthen, but the shadow of his father lingered, casting a pall over his actions. Yet unbeknownst to them, Hushai, the loyal friend of David, was already set on a path to undermine their plans. He had learned of Ahithophel's counsel, and with the same wisdom veiled in a dance of words, he approached the throne, speaking to Absalom of old David's cunning. "If your father is a warrior, so shall you be," Hushai conveyed. "But let not haste lead you into folly. Let him gather his forces and wait until the time is right, for strength should be met with strength, but wisdom shall reign over all." Confusion spread through Absalom's heart, for he was ensnared by both pieces of counsel. In this moment, Ahithophel's countenance darkened with the realization of the Lord's intervention, ringing through the chambers of his heart like a distant echo of fate. If this rebellion born out of animosity should lead to further ruin, then surely he would be accountable. And so it was. As decisions were made, the plot thickened while the hearts of men wavered in uncertainty. The whispers of prophecy merged with the winds of chaos, directing the hearts of the sons of men. A bitter betrayal lingered in the air, one that could lead toward ruin or redemption. What hope could arise from such turmoil? For even amidst humanity's darkest moments, God's sovereign hand began to weave an unforeseen tapestry of grace, still hidden in the shadows. As the drumbeats of war approached, the greatest clash awaited. Not just between father and son, but between divine mercy and humanity's folly, preparing the way for greater matters still unimagined. As the sun dipped low in the west, casting shadows across the dusty plains, the tension hung heavy in the air, like a storm brewing beyond the mountains. Absalom, caught in the throes of ambition, wrestled with the counsel of Ahithophel and Hushai, like a man torn between two worlds. In his heart he searched for direction, not knowing that the very choices before him were becoming a stage for the purposes of God. "Gather the men of war," he commanded, his voice echoing through the encampment, yet fraying at the edges with uncertainty. "We shall pursue David. I will prove I am worthy of the throne." As the soldiers stirred, his loyal followers, seduced by the allure of victory, the whispers of a kingdom under a cloud of rebellion began to take shape. Ahithophel's eyes darkened with disappointment, for within him lingered the knowledge that the path Absalom had chosen was fraught with peril. He saw the throne, yet remained blind to the covenant promises bound with the lineage of David. Meanwhile David, on the run from his own flesh and blood, had fled to the depths of the wilderness, his weary spirit yearning for solace. "O Lord," he cried, tears running down his face, "in the midst of my tribulation I seek your face. Remember your covenant with me." He recalled the words of his psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," Psalm 23:1, clinging to hope even as shadows encroached upon his soul. In the wilderness, weary and bereft, David sent messengers to the priests, saying, Take heed, my beloved companions. My son seeks my life. You must intercede for me." His heart grew heavy, knowing that his beloved Israel was caught in the web of Absalom's ambition. Yet not all was as it seemed, for at the heart of the unfolding drama was the guiding hand of God, hidden yet vigilant. Hushai, in his allegiance to David, collaborated tirelessly with the priests. He sent secret word to enlighten the king of Absalom's scheming. "Should the counsel of Ahithophel prevail," Hushai warned the priests, "the kingdom may descend into ruin." Then, with the flicker of a candle illuminating their faces in the dim tent, the priests turned to their scrolls, delving into the prophecies written long before. "What if this was foretold?" one murmured. "Does not the prophet declare that the hearts of kings are like rivers in the hands of the Lord?" Proverbs 21:1. In that moment, they grasped a fleeting glimpse of a divine tapestry being woven through layers of conflict. Returning to Absalom, clad in armor and desperation, Ahithophel sensed the spirit of confidence waning. "Hasten your pursuit," he urged, voice thick with trepidation. "The time to act is now." Yet, to his horror, upon Absalom's countenance lay a shadow of uncertainty as he recounted Hushai's clever counsel. "Let it be known, if my father gathers strength, he will be formidable. Therefore we must not leap too soon," Absalom decreed hesitantly, his trust wavering. Ahithophel's heart sank at the words, for the tides of fate were shifting unfavorably. "Ah, son of David, do not be led astray," he implored, recognizing that his counsel, once held in high regard, now floated like leaves in the wind. Therefore, deep within the bosom of the nation, God's purposes would continue to unfold, veiled yet unyielding, hinting at a redemption yet to come. For indeed, the path was dark, yet from such depths could rise a vessel of hope, a new covenant emerging even from betrayal, a reminder spun silently through the shadows that God, in his sovereignty, weaves through both the faithful and the wayward, preparing the stage for a grand reconciliation that few could yet perceive. What awaited them all on this treacherous road? The heart of God was still at work, and therein lay a mystery yet unraveled. As the cool night descended upon the camp, murmurs of strife and uncertainty rippled through Absalom's forces. Around the flickering campfires, soldiers shared tales of glory and conquest, yet in their hearts a dissonance began to brew. Absalom, standing atop a hill overlooking his encampment, felt a tightening in his chest. Fear clung to him like a shadow, whispering doubts that plagued his soul. "Bring forth Ahithophel," he commanded, his voice attempting to project authority, but faltering under the weight of doubt. The man who entered the tent carried wisdom, yet his heart bore the scars of betrayal. He had been a trusted advisor to King David, now torn between loyalty and self-preservation. "What shall we do?" Absalom beseeched, his voice low yet charged with fervor. "Hushai's counsel has delayed us." He leaned closer, desperation seeping into every syllable. "If we do not strike swiftly, my father's army may gather strength and crush us." Ahithophel, whose insight was revered throughout the land, hesitated, calculating the gravity of each word. "My lord, the heart of your father is strong, and he is a man of war. To engage him without full resolve would be folly. Rather, I counsel you to pursue him while he is weary, for the strength of the king lies in his followers, and they grow disheartened as he flees," he replied, his voice calm as the midnight breeze. Yet, in that moment, a flicker of doubt ignited within Absalom's heart. What if the words of Hushai were divinely issued as a warning? "Upon what grounds do you base your counsel?" he pressed, wrestling with the weightiness of fate hanging precariously on the edge. "Your throne is at stake, Absalom. Do not allow uncertainty to tie your hands. David is a skilled leader, but his men waver," Ahithophel reassured, pushing the young prince to act before the opportunity was lost. With a mixture of resolve and trepidation, Absalom nodded, but as he prepared to set his battle plan in motion, another torment surfaced. His heart echoed with the prophetic words of Nathan, "The sword shall never depart from your house." 2 Samuel 12:10. An uneasy fear clasped his spirit as he glanced at the stars above, feeling the weight of generational sin looming over him. Meanwhile, far from that tent, into the desolate woods, wandered David, whose heart was heavy with prayer. Surrounded by the haunting shadows of nature, he called unto the Lord, "My soul is distressed, O God. Turn not away from your servant, for I trust in you." Psalm 25:2. The echoes of his past victories resounded through his memories, intertwining with the present turmoil, and he anchored his hope to the unshakable promise of God's faithfulness. In the pit of despair, David's cries penetrated the heavens, igniting the heart of the Almighty. Heaven listened, and a divine anticipation hung thick in the air, for it was revealed in prophetic whispers that God had not abandoned his anointed, but rather, woven through the fabric of betrayal and ambition, was a plan to restore the broken and elevate the humble. What lay ahead for Absalom and David remained a mystery, yet the promise of divine intervention lingered as a flickering flame in darkened hearts. Would the wayward son come to understand the depth of the covenant made in secret, or would he continue down the treacherous path of rebellion? The stage was set for a collision of destinies, one seeking a throne, the other clothed in humility, each a player in the wondrous tapestry of God's sovereign design, revealing a truth yet unknown. As the dawn began to break over the hills, a golden light spilled across the camp, illuminating the troubled faces of Absalom's men. Fear and doubt lingered even as the sun ascended, framing the clash of emotions within their hearts. Absalom stood once more at the edge of his encampment, grappling with the counsel of Ahithophel, which bore the weight of both wisdom and peril. "Gather the men," he declared, trying to cloak himself in bravado. "We shall pursue my father this day. We shall not allow his flight to destroy our purpose." Yet within him, the prophetic words of Nathan resounded like thunder in a storm. "The sword shall never depart from your house." Meanwhile, David continued to seek divine solace in the wilderness, oblivious to the fury that brewed just beyond the shadows. He poured out his heart before God, reflecting on the trials that had brought him to this point. "O Lord, your steadfast love is better than life itself," he proclaimed, Psalm 63:3. His heart was a sanctuary of prayer, where he recalled the years of grace and favor. He beseeched the Almighty to protect his people and bring wisdom upon he and his followers. "Guide us in the way that we should go, for we seek your shelter, dear Lord." Psalm 25:5. In that silence the Lord's presence enveloped him, a reassurance coursed through him like water through parched earth. As the sun climbed higher, a restless tension electrified the air, and Absalom's troops prepared for battle. Ahithophel conferred with Absalom, his face betraying nothing of the turmoil within. "Let us strike swiftly, my lord. Take the initiative while David is encamped and disheartened," he advised, wielding the strategic prowess he possessed. Yet in his heart lingered the shadows of loyalty, once owed to David, haunting reminders of where his allegiance had begun. "Let Hushai be summoned," Absalom commanded, yet doubts whispered ceaselessly in his ears. "What if the counsel of this man is as misguided as my father's route of escape?" And so it was that Hushai, the friend of David, entered the tense canvas of the moment, his eyes sharp as the blade of a sword. "Long live the king," he greeted, trying to mask his trepidation with feigned loyalty. "Absalom, your wisdom shines like the noon sun. But may I offer a word of caution? Your father is not a creature to be cornered without cause. He is a lion, fierce and unyielding." Absalom's spirit wrestled with the jarring counsel. "What then shall we do?" he asked, desperation mingling with pride. Gather your men and let them be encouraged by the vision of strength and unity. If David is indeed as weary as you contend, let him see your might. A combined force of Israel, Hushai declared, weaving a tapestry of words, each thread designed to sway the heart of the young king. Allow him to feel panic, to tremble at the mere sight of what you command. The stakes escalated in the hearts gathered around that moment, one man driven by ambition, another by loyalty, while David lingered in prayerful solitude, as Hushai's words hung suspended in the air like incense rising to heaven. Absalom's heart found a flicker of resolve. Perhaps victory could yet be snatched from the jaws of hesitation. But the heaviness of Nathan's prophecy loomed ever larger, a spectre that clung closely, reminding him that in his quest for a throne, he may forfeit more than he could conceive. What lay ahead was veiled in the mists of divine purpose, a hopeful uncertainty threading through God's sovereign fabric. As schemes intertwined and destinies collided, the true depth of God's plan would soon unfold, revealing a path towards both judgment and redemption. And in that revelation, the gathering storm would either crown or unmake them all. As the sun cast its fierce rays upon the dusty paths of the wilderness, Absalom, emboldened by Hushai's words, rallied his troops with a fervor that sent ripples of anticipation through the gathered hosts. "Hear me, O men of Israel," he called out, his voice echoing across the valley. "Today we shall pursue my father and restore the honor of the throne to its rightful heir. The God of Israel is with us." There was a chorus of shouts in response, a unison of voices that swelled like the tide. Yet unseen to all but the heavens, a tension hung, as if the very fabric of creation held its breath in apprehension. Meanwhile, David was enshrouded in earnest supplication, still seeking the face of the Lord amidst his growing fears. "O Lord, deliver me from the hand of my son," he cried out, earnestness threading through his plea. He continued like a prophet afflicted by sorrow, "Let not the counsel of the wicked prevail against me." In that moment, the intelligence of Absalom's ascent to both ambition and authority lay heavy upon his heart. Yet he was comforted by the whispered assurance of the Lord that darkness would not overshadow the unbreakable bond of covenant promise. The psalmist's voice arose within him. "When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." Psalm 61:2. As Absalom advanced, a quiet fear crept through the hearts of his commanders. Ahithophel, still wrestling with his allegiance, watched with a keen eye as Absalom floundered in the dangerous waters of pride. The memories of service to David resurfaced in haunting clarity. He knew well the strength of the old king, yet he felt the weight of treason heavy on his soul. "What if the risks outweigh the glory?" he murmured to himself, eyes downcast. Unbeknownst to Absalom, Hushai's treachery moved like a shadow in stillness, crafting plans of its own. "What a dark path lies ahead," he thought, "but the Lord's purpose shall prevail." And as this thought settled upon his mind, he hurried back to David, intent on conveying the intelligence that could change the tide of battle. In a hidden grove, David received Hushai with deep gratitude, as his heart remained troubled but hopeful. "What news have you, my friend?" David queried, eager and anxious. "Absalom's heart is set upon your ruin, but I bring tidings of great importance," Hushai responded urgently. "You must prepare and flee, for the counsel of Ahithophel holds a sinister weight. Your son is determined to make swift work of this. He seeks your ruin like a lion seeking its prey." David, ever aware of the gravity of circumstances, felt wisdom and urgency fuse into action. "Let us gather the loyal and the brave," he resolved. "We must depart this place and seek refuge. Yet deep within, my heart remains heavy, for it is my own flesh and blood who seeks my end." But the Lord, in his wisdom, held the reins of the unfolding drama. Unknown to all, he had instilled a spirit of confusion into the hearts of the opposing force. Ahithophel's counsel, once so esteemed, began to fray at the edges as whispers of doubt penetrated Absalom's resolve. As night fell, a captivating stillness enveloped both camps, a divine pause that transfixed the hearts of men and the will of heaven. In the quiet, the tapestry of divine providence began to unfold, the strands of betrayal ever entwined with the threads of redemption. And so it was that the stage was set for that which would echo through ages. Through the darkness of treachery could a greater light emerge? Would the son of David fulfill his father's legacy, or would he fall into the pit his own ambition had dug? As the light dimmed and hope wavered, one truth remained. A sovereign hand guided the tomorrow they could not foresee, a hidden purpose threaded through betrayal and redemption, awaiting revelation under the unyielding skies. And with that, the next chapter of God's extraordinary plan loomed ever closer, entrapping both heart and soul within the greater design. As dawn's light pierced the rising mist, the armies began to stir. Absalom, adorned in fine armor that glinted with bursts of morning sun, felt the weight of his ambition upon his shoulders. He surveyed his men, their faces alight with determination, but within the deeper recesses of their hearts, uncertainty flickered. "Prepare yourselves," he commanded, rallying their spirits as whispers of doubt wrapped like tendrils around their minds. Yet even as Absalom took command, at the edge of the camp, Ahithophel's shadow loomed large. He stood apart from the clamor, wrestling within his soul. The remnants of loyalty to David tugged against the allure of Absalom's rising star. The voice of the Lord echoed in his mind, reminding him of the trust that had been built over years of faithful service. "What if I betray the anointed of the Lord?" Ahithophel agonized silently, casting his gaze towards the horizon where the king once reigned. Meanwhile, David prepared for the departure, urgency threading his decisions. His heart tore at the thought of fleeing before his own son, anguished yet resolved to protect those who remained loyal. "Let us go swiftly, for the hand of the Lord is upon us," David urged his confidants. The faithful ones gathered around him, hearts fortified by their faith and the stirring of ancient promises. Among them was Ittai the Gittite, a foreigner but faithful follower. "As the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, wherever my lord may be, whether for death or for life, there also will your servant be," he exclaimed, his words a balm to David's wounded spirit. Moved by this expression, David gathered his people. "Then it shall be as you have said," he declared, tears shadowing his eyes. "We will trust in the Lord, for he shall not abandon us. The path ahead is uncertain, yet we know that his plans shall prevail." As Absalom's forces began their march, Ahithophel came forth to advise the young king. "Let me choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight," he proposed with urgency, keen to leverage the element of surprise. "I will attack him while he is weary and weak, and all the people with him will flee. I shall strike down only the king, and I will bring back all the people to you." The counsel seemed wise, and Absalom's heart quickened with ambition. Yet that very day, a spirit of confusion gripped the hearts of the commanders, and a fear began to envelop the camp. Ahithophel's counsel, once regarded as divinely inspired, seemed to falter with invisible uncertainty, a hint of divine intervention that none could see. In a moment that would seal the fate of many, Hushai, loyal to David, found his way among the advisers. Like a lion in stealth, he wove his own counsel. "No, not this way. The engagement must come when your father is like a bear robbed of her cubs. Fierce and battle-hardened," he urged passionately, "you must gather all Israel to you and confront him publicly to ensure the respect of the people and prevent a division that will lead to loss." As Hushai's words met Absalom's ears, the young king wrestled with the competing thoughts. A quiet disorder stirred within him, whispering both doubt and resolve. Thus his heart swayed, as the very destiny of kingdoms hung in the balance. Unbeknownst to all gathered, the Lord's unseen hand guided the hearts of men, stirring confusion and redirecting the course of their decisions like a potter shaping clay. What lay ahead was not merely the conflict of two kings, but a divine tapestry wherein God's sovereign plan would unfold, held together through the threads of loyalty, treachery, and the ultimate purpose of redemption. As the hour grew late, the stage was set not only for a confrontation, but for a confrontation with destiny itself. The shadows lengthened, and amidst the clamor of war, whispers of a greater truth stirred deep within. Would this clash lead to ruin, or would it unveil the triumph of divine purpose? As choices were made and paths crossed, all hearts awaited the revelation of God's plan yet to unfold. As the night draped its heavy cloak over the land, Absalom gathered the commanders of his forces, his heart racing with a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. The moonlight shone cold upon the faces of his men, casting flickering shadows upon their armor. The air was thick with unspoken fears and ambitions, and the tension hung heavy like a storm about to break. "Let us prepare for battle," Absalom declared, raising his voice above the murmurs. "For today we seize the kingdom that is rightfully mine. With the Lord's favor we shall crush any remnant of David's rule, and then all Israel will turn to me." His words ignited a fervor in the hearts of his followers, yet the shadow of doubt continued to dance in the corners of their minds. Amid this fervor, Ahithophel stood firmly before Absalom, though his heart trembled at the thought of betrayal. "Your Majesty," he said cautiously, seeking to steady the turmoil within him, "the counsel of Hushai may yet prove to be folly. Trust in my wisdom, and we shall descend upon David tonight with swiftness and force." His brow knitted with worry, for he knew the Lord had declared David his anointed. "Ahithophel, your wisdom is esteemed among my men, yet Hushai speaks with the voice of experience. Perhaps we should heed his words, ensure our victory with greater numbers," Absalom replied, wavering now beneath the weight of conflicting advice. But even as he spoke, the air thickened with a growing unease, and a hallowed whisper surfaced in the depths of Ahithophel's spirit, a reminder of the breach he faced. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ravine, David, heart laden with a father's anguish, sought the counsel of the Lord. "O God," he cried out, "watch over your servant and save us from the hand of Absalom, for your promises are ever true, and my heart finds solace in your word." Among his loyal followers, the night was filled with fervent prayers and hushed supplications. The fellow servants encircled David, their hearts united in earnestness. Ittai was among them, his voice unwavering as he clasped the king's hand. "Fear not, O king," he affirmed, "for the Lord your God will be your refuge and strength, an ever-present help in your trials." As the dawn approached, an overwhelming sense of fate loomed over both camps. The faithful servants of David began to strategize for their escape, planning routes while the wicked buzz of Absalom's ambition multiplied. Yet each man mustered his strength from the deep-rooted promise emblazoned within their hearts. God is ever faithful to those who call upon him. The sun pierced the horizon, and in that luminescent moment, disquiet rippled through both armies. Ahithophel, tormented by the gravity of his counsel, turned his face to the heavens, pleading for revelation. A tragic realization enveloped him. The very choice he had made in council, by his disloyalty to the king of Israel, beckoned him toward his own undoing. Absalom, now poised for action, stood before his men with feverish eyes. "Today we fight for our future. It is a battle not only for a crown, but a battle for the hearts of the people." He raised his sword high, but as the cheering rose, an unseen hand loomed over the scene, a reminder that providences unseen often lead to outcomes beyond mortal understanding. Ahithophel found an unexpected path unfolding within him. Though he had conspired against David, A flicker of remorse kindled at the thought of the innocent blood that would be shed. As the armies prepared for the impending confrontation, Absalom's ambition swelled, igniting fogs of doubt within Ahithophel. What he did not know was that the hand of the Lord was at work, orchestrating a divine turn of events that none could foresee, the eternal plan hidden within the rise and fall of kings. For in the battles to come, the tragic folly of rebellion was setting the stage for the unfolding of God's sovereign redemption plan, with the promise of a greater triumph awaiting on the morrow. The tide of history would reveal the depths of the Lord's faithfulness as his disciples walked through the valley of shadows, guided by the light of his never-failing purpose. In the heart of the valley, the armies gathered, a tapestry of pride and desperation woven into the fabric of the day. Absalom, fueled by ambition, stood ready for battle, yet a shroud of uncertainty cloaked his heart. The words of Ahithophel and Hushai clashed within him, shadows of loyalty battling the flames of his desire for power. As he surveyed his forces, he could not shake the whisper of dread tracing the edges of his soul, nor could he see the divine orchestration unfolding beyond the horizon. Meanwhile, King David, fleeing as a fugitive from the wrath of his own son, knelt in the wilderness. His heart was heavy with anguish, yet his spirit soared upon the wings of faith. "O Lord, hear my prayer," he cried, tears mingling with ash and dust. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Psalm 23:4. Each utterance of faith drove the darkness back, a light newly ignited by the flames of salvation. As the armies of Absalom surged toward conflict, divine providence moved in mysterious ways. It was as if heaven held its breath, waiting for the pivotal moment when the righteousness of God would be revealed amidst the storm of human frailty. Ahithophel, once the wisest of advisers, now stood paralyzed by the enormity of betrayal and the realization of his folly. The shadows of guilt clung tightly, whispering reminders of the anointed king whom he betrayed. In a moment of clarity, he recognized the great sin he carried, and in anguish he returned to the depths of his soul, seeking a remedy for his wounded heart. As the clash of swords drew near, a sudden unease struck Absalom. He turned toward Ahithophel, seeking reassurance. "Can we not prevail against David?" he questioned, voice quivering with the uncertainty of his choices. Ahithophel knew the storm of consequence awaited them all. "My lord, it is the Lord's battle, and where the heart is divided, defeat is imminent," he spoke, the weight of his words threading sorrow through the air. He understood that forsaking the Anointed One came with a price far greater than any earthly throne could promise. The battlefield hummed with tension as Absalom gazed into the faces of his men, their eyes reflecting fervor, but wavering against the shadows of doubt. The king before him, his father David, was a warrior forged in the fire of divine purpose. "Forward!" he commanded, wrestling to assert control, yet the weight of prophecy hung heavy upon his soul. Each step toward conflict felt as though they marched into the depths of despair. Just then, as the dust of their march stirred into the air, David's prayers ascended in the quiet of the wilderness. "Lord, deliver me from my son," he prayed. In that moment of desperation, he received a vision of grace amidst destruction, a promise from ages past that redemption would rise from ashes, and through tears, a wayward heart could find its way back home. On that fateful day, the clash erupted not merely as a battle of flesh and blood, but as a manifestation of divine will played out across the stage of history. The armies collided, the sound of chaos mingling with cries of anguish, yet as the dust settled, a stark reality rose within the heart of Absalom. In that very tumult, he saw the anger of heaven against pride and betrayal, and his own heart shattered beneath the weight of consequence. In a moment gripped by divine intervention, as the forces raged on, Absalom rode forth, seeking glory but finding destruction instead. The sword of judgment fell, and in a swift calamity he was caught unawares, the very fate he had so sought tearing him apart. Ahithophel, witnessing the woeful turn of events, staggered back, knowing through his betrayal he had set the scene for his own demise as well. As the cries of conflict faded, the dust of history settled upon the ground. In the wake of tragedy, hearts turned toward redemption, and a bitter betrayal forged restoration. The once cursed lineage began to breathe anew as God's promises remained steadfast. Through the lineage of David, a greater king would arise to redeem all creation. As the sun set over the kingdom, King David, weighed down with grief yet renewed in purpose, mourned for his son, led by a heart woven together in the fabric of love and loss. "O Absalom, my son, he cried, each word piercing the heavens. His lament echoed through Jerusalem, for within him burned the sacred flame of a restorative covenant, a reminder that no rebellion could outmatch the love of a father or the grace of God. In this tale of treachery, betrayal, and redemption, the Lord's faithfulness shone brightest. For no heart, no matter how lost, is beyond the reach of God's unyielding mercy. As history unfolded, the narrative of Ahithophel and Absalom served as a powerful testament that even in betrayal, God's sovereign hand weaves a tapestry of redemption that holds the promise of restoration for all who seek his face. Now, dear friends, as you reflect upon this sacred story, know that God's truth remains alive in your hearts. Take this moment to respond. Subscribing is essential to stay connected to His Word. You need to subscribe now to dive deeper into these transformational biblical tales. Leave a like now. Together we can help spread God's Word through the algorithm, reaching souls who yearn for His truth. Comment your thoughts below. How has this powerful story impacted your faith? Your reflections can encourage others to draw closer to God. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who may need to hear God's revelations today. You are contributing to the eternal narrative of His grace and mercy. Let us continue this journey together, trusting in the unfathomable love of our Lord.